Brian, interesting social predicament. Posting about any type of job or personal achievement on Facebook and Twitter and then having to deal with the influx of congratulations from people, most of which you haven't heard from in years.
Exactly.
And then having to deal with, do you like the comments? Do you love the comments? Do you reply to every single one? Like, what do you do in that situation?
It's awkward because if you comment on one person's but don't comment on another, like say you have two aunts and you say,
exactly.
Thanks Aunt Becky with a red heart, and then you just say, thanks Aunt Sue with no heart. So there's a little favoritism, and I don't know if it's it's awkward.
We'll continue this discussion later, but first, court's in session.
Hello, once again into this brand new edition of Courts in Session. Alongside my partner, Addison Hunsicker, I am Brian Steinmetz. The regular season is starting to wind down for both teams, and neither team is giving us any serious signs of hope for its conference tournament chances.
Life after the conference tournaments is certainly looking slim for the Owls. The men's 2020 roller coaster ride continued, while the women split their two matchups to stay in the middle of a crowded pack in the AAC.
Our producer Kevin Rice, I'm sure, was all over this past weekend's matchups for both Owls teams as they took on the ECU Pirates. Just another example of his big crunch conspiracy theory that all things are slowly coming together. The Owls took it a bit too far, though, this weekend when they both caught a loss down in Greenville. The women started out very strong in this one versus the Pirates. 22 points in the first quarter, but as you see, they only tallied 50 for the game, so that's almost half of their points in the first. They only scored 28 points the rest of the contest, with only two Owls in double figures. Ashley Jones here with 14 and Mia Davis with 13.
The season of inconsistencies continued for the men's team on Sunday. 3 Alani Moore free throws put Temple up with 3:51 remaining in the second half, but the Owls failed to score a single point on their remaining 12 possessions, dropping to the now 11-17 ECU Pirates 67-63.
Yeah, 6 3 balls from beyond the arc. That obviously is quite subpar, but it's even more amazing when you consider that there were actually 4 for 9 from long range in the first quarter. If you do the math, that leaves Temple just 2 3 balls the rest of the way. This helped Temple get outscored in the fourth quarter by 13 points, which led to this 56-50 loss.
The shooting was once again the storyline for Aaron McKee's squad. Temple shot 35% from the field, 25% from 3, and 50% from the free throw line, missing 13 of 26 attempts. Quentin Rose led the Owls with 15 points, but only shot 5 of 18 from the field. For the men's side, Sunday's disappointing loss to the ECU came days after a double overtime thriller on North Broad. The Owls dropped their previous matchup against the Huskies on January 28th and entered this one tied with UConn in the AAC standings. Nate Pierre-Louis led the way for the Owls. The junior forward finished the day with 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists and 3 steals, which generated open transition looks. Despite trailing by 8 with less than 4 minutes remaining, UConn did not go down without a fight. It was a back-and-forth finish. You see Monty Scott with a layup there. Isaiah Whaley gets the floater to tie it up with 5 seconds to go. Monty Scott goes for the onions, but can't get the floater to fall, and we've got overtime on North Broad. Ha ha ha! The onions would, however, kick in for Scott in overtime. Scott scored 8 of his 25 points in overtime, providing a spark off the bench that pushed the Owls over the top to take home the 93-89 victory over the UConn Huskies.
After the women won their nail-biter against Houston, and before their loss against ECU, they took on the Memphis Tigers in a Wednesday matinee at the Liacouras Center. It was also school day at the Liacouras Center, all the youngsters on hand to check out the action, and that action started early for Temple as they jumped out to a 10-point lead to end the first quarter, and it was smooth sailing after that as they kept Memphis at arm's length just about the rest of the way. The two heavy hitters in this one, Mia Davis and Ashley Jones, combining for 44 points. Jones also adding 9 assists to her stat line. Marissa Mackins struggled, however, from beyond the arc. She was 0 for 4 with only 2 points scored, but Landon Yang picked up the slack in Mackins with 4 threes of her own. Owls win comfortably on school day by a final score of 78-64. The women have just 3 games left to get themselves in a better position for the conference tournament. They play at UCF, at Tulane, and home against Tulsa this weekend. The team currently sits at 5th in the conference, but only one game back of the third-seeded UCF Golden Knights. So each game will be pivotal down the stretch. If the women want a serious shot at the UConn Huskies, who will be the surefire favorites to come out of the tournament victorious?
Because it's a leap year, we have to wait an extra day until my favorite month of the year, March. As Conference Championship week nears, NCAA tournament bids will be secured while bubbles will be popped. Temple is on the outside looking in, needing an AAC tournament victory to reach the big dance for the second straight season. But there are a handful of AAC teams that have a chance of securing an at-large bid. Last season, the American had 4 tournament bids, and it's looking like the same could be true in 2020. As of today, Houston is the only AAC team that will be able to rest easy on Selection Sunday. Kelvin Sampson's squad currently sits as a projected 6 to 8 seed and will be heading to the NCAA tournament for the 3rd straight season. It gets interesting with Wichita State, Cincinnati, and Memphis. If you take a look at each of their remaining schedules, all 3 teams have a chance to make their case. Wichita State has a chance to enter the AAC tournament without a worry by winning out. The Shockers can afford to drop their road matchup at Memphis, but their other 3 games are can't lose, especially their 2 home games against Temple and Tulsa. Cincinnati is all but in if the Bearcats can take care of business at Houston. But much like Wichita State's situation, Cincy can only afford a loss to Houston, but must beat UCF and Temple to be safe. Memphis has the biggest bubble of the 3. The Tigers have not been the same team since losing 5-star recruit James Wiseman. They must win out or else they'll be closely approaching AAC or bust territory. A loss at Houston will not hurt, but when you're on the bubble, you need to move the needle, and a ranked road win would certainly do so.
Yeah, Addison, it's hard to think that the committee will give or show any love to the AAC. They hardly do in any sport across the board. It's hard to think they'll favor more than about 3 teams from the AAC. My picks, and you had them up there, Houston, Wichita State, and Cincinnati. What do you think?
Yeah, Memphis is certainly the odd man out in this one. I only think 3 out of the 4 AAC teams are going to get in. It's hard to see Memphis winning out. Can't see them sweeping Houston. They just haven't been the same team since they've lost Wiseman. Wichita State, only scenario they don't get in is if they lose 2 out of 4 in the regular season and don't have a good showing in the conference tournament, which again is unlikely. So I think you're looking at 3 out of the 4 teams. Cincinnati getting close to being a lock at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Memphis is the odd man out as well, and they have a lot of unfavorable matchups. And if you look at the top, they're all kind of bunched together at the top. A lot of them play each other, so it's really been interesting to see how it plays out in the tournament down in Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And the conference hasn't been that strong this year. Tulsa, SMU would have the bigger cases for the tournament if the conference was up this year, but the AAC is certainly down this year.
And in terms of Temple, I don't even think we should be mentioning them in this segment. It's all see you next season for those boys.
Yeah, it's AAC conference tournament to bust at this point.
Conference tournaments are right around the corner, and then it'll be Selection Sunday, followed by Madness. But first, we need to finish out the regular season, and we will have it all when we return in 2 weeks. After spring break, be sure to check out a new episode of OSU Live Thursday on TUTV with Dom Gillespie and Brooklyn Vaughn. For all of us here at Courts in Session, for Addison Hunsaker, I am Brian Steinmetz. Enjoy your week. Don't forget to smile. We'll see you.